6 paladins, 4 gladius fighters. Every single paladin destroyed, not one gladius lost. That actually happened in testing, and if your first reaction is, well, yeah, pilot skill matters, you're missing the point entirely. This isn't about skill. This is about a fundamental design flaw that's been rotting Star Citizen's combat system since the beginning, and patch 4.4 just dropped the fix nobody expected CIG to actually implement. There's a video from Avenger Rust 1 posted November 10th, link in the description, breaking down the Eva Caddy build for 4.4, and the changes he's documented fundamentally alter how every single combat encounter plays out, not tweaks, not balance passes, actual structural changes to weapon systems that ripple through everything from solo bounty hunting to fleet warfare. The criticism leveled at Star Citizen's flight model hasn't been arbitrary nitpicking. It's been pointing at specific, measurable problems that make certain gameplay loops feel hollow. When feedback comes with examples, with data, with video evidence of why something doesn't work, that's not negativity. That's the kind of input that actually moves development forward. And apparently, someone at CIG was taking notes. Because what's coming in 4.4 addresses issues the community's been documenting for years. Live servers right now have most weapons sitting around 2,500 to 3,000 meters effective range. Sounds reasonable until you actually think about what that means in practice. A Gladius can park itself at 2,200 meters from an Idris and just shoot forever. Unlimited energy weapons, shields regenerating between attack runs, zero risk. The Idris has turrets. The Idris has guns. The Idris has a crew of players desperately trying to return fire. None of it matters because landing consistent hits on a maneuvering fighter at that distance is essentially rolling dice. Everyone fixates on shield strength, hull points, damage per second calculations. Those are symptoms. The disease is engagement geometry, when small, fast platforms can deal damage from the same ranges that large, slow platforms can theoretically respond from, but the small platform can actually dodge while the large one can't. You don't have combat. You have a shooting gallery where one side bought a ticket and the other side is the target. Patch 4.4 doesn't buff shields, doesn't nerf fighter damage. It collapses the engagement ranges so drastically that the entire tactical landscape changes. According to the ETF testing documented in that video, size 5 weapons now cap at roughly 1,300 meters. Size 4s hit about 1,250. Size 3s fall between 1,200 and 1,300. Size 2s drop to the 1,000 to 1,100 range. Size 1s bottom out around 900 to 1,000 meters. Those are energy weapons. Ballistics add another 200 to 300 meters on top, creating a meaningful choice between unlimited ammo with heat management versus extended range with finite ammunition. The immediate observation from people who've tested this? Fighters can't sit outside and plink anymore. The math doesn't work. To apply damage, you have to close to under 1,300 meters, and at 1,300 meters, turrets can actually hit you back. Not theoretically, actually, consistently. That Paladin massacre happened under the old system where Gladius pilots could maintain 2,000 plus meter separation. The Paladins had weapons, had turrets, had firepower, couldn't land enough hits to matter because the engagement geometry favored the smaller, faster platform. Reducing weapon ranges doesn't just tweak numbers, it forces fighters into the envelope where defensive turrets become legitimately dangerous. The risk-free attack run is dead. The implications cascade through every combat scenario. Bounty hunting changes, escort missions change, piracy changes, fleet engagements change, because now getting close enough to deal damage means getting close enough to receive damage, and that's been the missing piece of Star Citizen's combat puzzle for years. Think about the last time someone in your crew was on turret duty during a fight. The boredom, the frustration, watching fighters dance just outside your effective range while you burn through ammunition hitting nothing, calling out targets, tracking them perfectly, squeezing the trigger, and watching your shots arrive at empty space. Because by the time the projectiles travel 2,500 meters, the target moved. That experience is about to become a relic. Turret gameplay is about to mean something. Ballistic weapons maintaining 200 to 300 meters of extra range over energy weapons creates tactical depth that didn't exist before. Energy weapons pull from your capacitor, generate heat, stress your cooling systems, but they never run out. Ballistics give you that range advantage, opening engagements from 1,400 meters instead of 1,200, but every shot depletes a finite magazine. The testing footage shows vanguards with mixed loadouts demonstrating this trade-off clearly. Opening with ballistics from 1,400 meters lands those critical first hits before the opponent can effectively respond. But the moment you cross into their optimal range, that advantage evaporates. Against a fully crewed hammerhead, starting your attack run at 1,400 meters with ballistics means you're landing hits, building damage, establishing momentum. Then you hit 1,200 meters, and multiple turrets light you up simultaneously. The old meta of sitting at maximum range and slowly grinding down capital ships through attrition, Ammunition economy alone kills that strategy. Even if you could somehow dodge all return fire, which you can't anymore, you'd run dry long before scoring a kill. The game now forces aggressive, decisive engagements instead of passive, risk-averse kiting. The video describes a scenario that perfectly illustrates the shift. 4 light fighters versus a Polaris with partial crew. Under the old system, that's 15 minutes of tedious kiting. Maintain 2,500 meters, rotate attack runs, let shields regenerate, chip away slowly. Boring for the attackers, absolutely infuriating for the defenders. New build? Completely different fight. Coordinated attack runs become mandatory. Boost in under 1,000 meters, unload everything, break hard before defensive turrets shred you, and they will shred you if you overstay. One Gladius disintegrated under focused turret fire because the pilot stayed in the danger zone 3 seconds too long. That changes the entire psychological dynamic. Consequences exist now. Risk is real, the attacker still won that engagement, but it required coordination, timing, and accepting losses. One fighter down, Polaris destroyed. Everyone's heart rate elevated. That's what combat should feel like. Earned victories with actual stakes, not guaranteed outcomes from exploiting broken engagement geometry. Quick aside, if the idea of 4 Gladius fighters deleting 6 paladins made you realize something's been fundamentally broken, and if hearing that CIG actually fixed it makes you want to stay updated on how these changes evolve, the subscribe button exists for exactly that reason. No pressure, but patch 4.4 is going to reshape everything, and covering those changes as they roll out to live servers is literally the plan going forward. Back to the important stuff. The range reduction solves half the problem. The other half remains weapon performance parity between pilot-controlled and turret-mounted systems. Right now, a Panther repeater performs identically, whether it's on a Gladius or a Retaliator turret. Same velocity, same range, same damage. That's the lingering issue. 2 solutions get proposed in the community discussion, both viable, both implementable without reinventing core systems. First, bespoke turret assemblies. Instead of mounting individual weapons on turret hardpoints, install complete turret systems. An AGS Dagger 3 turret assembly designed specifically for multi-crew platforms, with enhanced projectile velocity, optimized tracking systems, and balanced range advantages. Swap them between compatible ships like you'd swap any other component. Similar to how mining ships use specialized heads, or the Starfarer uses unique fuel pods. Second, hull bonuses. Direct stat modifications based on ship class. A Hammerhead gets a 75% velocity bonus to all turret-mounted energy weapons. Those Rhino repeaters suddenly have significantly higher projectile speed when mounted on a Hammerhead versus a Buccaneer. Same weapon, different platform, different performance. EVE Online has used this system for decades because it works. Either solution addresses the core asymmetry, smaller platforms dodging return fire while dealing full damage. Ship selection starts mattering strategically. Fleet composition becomes a puzzle with actual wrong answers. Multi-crew gameplay gains the teeth it's always needed. New players benefit because their multi-crew experience finally feels powerful instead of futile. Veterans benefit because tactical depth increases exponentially when ship choice carries meaningful trade-offs. Spectrum's been on fire since this information started circulating, and surprisingly, most of the combustion is positive. Even dedicated light fighter pilots, the ones who've been dominating the meta for years, acknowledge the old system was broken. There's this collective recognition that sustainable game design requires rock-paper-scissors balance, not light fighter beats everything, because engagement geometry is busted. One comment thread pointed out that multi-crew ships should feel imposing, threatening, and intimidating, not like oversized piñatas waiting to get cracked open by a couple of arrows. Another discussion highlighted how turret gameplay has been the least rewarding role in the entire game, and these changes might actually fix that fundamental problem. 2 years of pushing weapon range issues, providing examples, submitting detailed feedback with video evidence, and testing data. Apparently that persistence actually moved the needle. Sometimes yelling into the void works when the void is listening. When 4.4 hits live servers, combat tactics need complete overhauls. Fighter pilots, the lazy kiting at 2,500 meters is over. Attack runs become mandatory. Boost in below 1,200 meters. Unload weapons, break away before taking critical damage. Think World War II torpedo bomber runs, not modern beyond visual range missile engagements. Approach vectors matter. Coming in fast, hitting hard, and breaking at angles that minimize turret exposure time is the new baseline skill requirement. Multi-crew turret gunners finally get to be effective. Targets will be in optimal range, hits will land consistently. Focus fire becomes crucial. Coordinate with other turret operators to burn down individual fighters instead of spreading damage across multiple targets. Ship commanders, positioning matters now. Fighters have to close to effective range, creating predictable approach lanes. Keeping your heaviest armed arcs facing the threat vector isn't optional anymore. Loadout theory crafting just got exponentially more complex. Ballistic versus energy trade-offs actually matter. Range versus ammunition economy creates real decisions. The ripple effects of range compression extend beyond obvious combat scenarios. Escort missions transform from stay near the client to maintain defensive perimeter at specific ranges. Pirates can't safely probe convoys from distance anymore. Commitment is required. Bounty hunting against player targets becomes significantly more dangerous because closing to effective range means entering their effective range simultaneously. Fleet warfare gains actual tactical depth. Screen ships, destroyers, corvettes, heavy fighters suddenly have defined roles protecting capital ships by engaging threats in that critical 1,000 to 1,500 meter envelope. Capital ships can focus on capital ship threats while smaller vessels handle fighter screens. That's actual naval warfare doctrine, translated into space combat. Stealth gameplay gets more interesting. If weapons only reach 1,200 meters, closing undetected to 1,000 meters before opening fire becomes a viable tactic. Ambush predators gain advantages. The meta shifts from who can kite better to who controls engagement range and timing. Even non-combat scenarios change. Blockades become enforceable because ships can't just ignore defenders from safe distances. Territory control becomes possible when weapon ranges don't extend to absurd distances. Maelstrom engineering gameplay integrating with these weapon changes creates another layer. Power management affecting weapon performance makes sense. Larger ships with more robust power plants, pushing higher weapon velocities through better power delivery. That's not arbitrary buffs, that's logical systems interaction. Engineering stations dynamically overclocking turret systems during combat, trading increased heat generation and power draw for temporary velocity and range boosts, or diverting power from non-essential systems to weapon capacitors during attack runs. That's emergent gameplay from systems interacting, not scripted mechanics. Damage control becomes critical. If a turret's power feed gets damaged, performance degrades. Engineers can reroute power, restore functionality, but it requires active management during combat. Multi-crew gameplay gains depth because every station matters, every role contributes, and coordination between stations creates advantages. The range reduction is foundational but incomplete. Turret tracking speeds still need evaluation. Projectile velocities might need further tuning. The bespoke turret or hull bonus implementation remains theoretical until CIG commits to one approach. PDCs, point defense cannons, face an interesting challenge. If their ranges drop proportionally, engaging incoming torpedoes and missiles becomes significantly harder. They might need exemptions or different range scaling, or integration with radar and targeting systems that extend their effective envelope through better prediction algorithms. Component targeting becomes more viable at closer ranges, but also more dangerous. Precision strikes against specific subsystems, engines, power plants, weapon hardpoints, require sustained fire at close range where defensive turrets are most effective. Risk-reward calculations shift dramatically. Armor implementation, whenever it arrives, will interact with these range changes in unpredictable ways. Smaller weapons might lose effectiveness entirely against armored targets, forcing fighters into dedicated anti-capital loadouts with torpedoes or specialized munitions. The testing community's already theory crafting how armor penetration mechanics will layer on top of these range changes. Star Citizen's combat has cycled through multiple iterations, each attempting to solve the same core problems. Extremely fast projectile velocities made aiming trivial. Extremely slow velocities made hitting anything impossible. Range adjustments have been attempted before, but never this dramatically, never with this much compression across all weapon sizes. The community's been pushing for meaningful multi-crew combat since the Hammerhead released and immediately became a joke in PvP scenarios. Watching a dedicated anti-fighter platform lose to the fighters, it's designed to counter revealed fundamental design flaws. Years of feedback, testing, video evidence, and detailed analysis finally converged into actionable changes. This isn't CIG randomly deciding to shake up the meta. This is the result of persistent, objective feedback, identifying specific problems with measurable solutions. Content creators documenting these issues, players submitting detailed bug reports and balance feedback, theory crafters running the math, all of that contributed to CIG finally addressing the root cause instead of treating symptoms. If CIG continues this trajectory, addressing fundamental design issues instead of surface-level number tweaking, Star Citizen's combat could actually achieve the depth and complexity it's always promised. Ship roles become defined. Fleet composition matters. Tactical decisions carry weight. Skill expression expands beyond can you aim to do you understand engagement geometry, range control, and tactical positioning. The next flight model iteration, whatever form it takes, building on this foundation could be genuinely transformative. Rumors suggest more comprehensive changes coming, and if they maintain this philosophy of forcing meaningful trade-offs and eliminating risk-free gameplay loops, the trajectory is promising. Multi-crew gameplay becoming genuinely viable, not just viable, but preferred for certain scenarios, changes the entire social dynamic of Star Citizen organizations gain reasons to coordinate. Solo players gain reasons to crew with others. The multiplayer aspect of this multiplayer game finally gets teeth. The economic implications alone are substantial when operating a crewed capital ship becomes strategically advantageous instead of a liability. One aspect that deserves attention: weapon velocity hasn't been mentioned in the available information about 4.4 changes. Range compression helps, but if projectile speeds remain unchanged, hitting maneuvering targets at even 1,200 meters still presents challenges for turret gunners. The community discussion around bespoke turrets or hull bonuses often focuses on velocity, increases as the primary benefit. A Panther repeater firing from a hammerhead turret having 50 to 75% higher projectile velocity than the same weapon on a Gladius would solve the hit probability problem without requiring perfect aim. Larger ships with more power available pushing projectiles faster makes logical sense. The physics supports it. The gameplay benefits from it. Implementation seems straightforward, either through turret-specific weapons, hull bonuses, or power plant scaling. What makes these changes significant isn't just the numbers, it's the philosophy shift they represent. CIG moving away from every ship should be viable in every scenario towards ships have defined roles with clear strengths and weaknesses is fundamental. A Gladius shouldn't be able to solo a hammerhead. That's not balance, that's broken design. The counter-argument always comes up, but I paid for this ship, it should be powerful. Sure, powerful at its intended role. A Gladius is powerful as an interceptor, a dogfighter, a fast response combat platform. It's not a capital ship killer, it shouldn't be. That's what retaliators with torpedoes exist for. That's why Ares Infernos and Ions were created specialized tools for specialized jobs. Weapon ranges collapsed from 2,500 plus meters to under 1,300. Fighters face actual risk attacking larger ships. Combat meta is fundamentally shifting toward dynamic, tactical gameplay requiring skill, coordination, and intelligent decision-making. Drop a comment about your most frustrating light fighter versus capital ship experience. The war stories from the old meta are about to become historical artifacts, and documenting them matters. What ship were you in? What killed you? How long did it take? Those experiences shaped the feedback that led to these changes. Check out Avenger Dibber 1's video linked in the description for the detailed breakdown with actual ETF footage and testing data. His analysis goes deeper into specific weapon stats and includes demonstrations of the new engagement dynamics. Content happens when there's something genuinely valuable to discuss. This weapon balance overhaul qualifies. Star Citizen's combat is finally moving toward meaningful choice, tactical depth, and gameplay, where every ship class has defined roles and genuine purpose. The future's looking substantially less broken than the past. See you in the next one.